Hey family, just sitting here outside the bank in Bucerias. This one's called Banamex. I opened the account in September. In Watusko, which is where I was planning to start my civil association. And now I'm here making the transition, so I'm going back and forth. I'm in Nayarit now, and when I go into the bank, instead of just asking for my bank card and my cedula, my residence ID, like every other bank asks for, they insist on seeing my passport. So I have a copy of my passport, because that's not something you're just going to take willy-nilly with you everywhere you go. And so I showed her a copy of my passport, and I showed her a copy of the contract, the original contract actually. And I said, if you look at the original contract, my cedula was used to open the account, not my passport. And I want to remind you that I have like 3 or 4 photo IDs with me right now to verify I am who I say I am. And I want to remind you that this is my 4th visit in 3 months to the same bank, in person, minimum 4 hours each time by the time you drive here and drive back and sit in the office. Even if you have an appointment, they'll make you wait an hour and a half. Or the person you have the appointment with just doesn't show up, and then you have to take a number and wait 2 hours. It's real interesting. And the cherry on top of this delicious, steaming hot pile of sugar-coated bullshit is I'm having now, this is, let's see, the 4th visit. So this would be at 20 hours, a part-time job of my time to come down here to a bank. Ready for this? Are you ready for this? To get my statements. My contract clearly says, how do you want your statements to be delivered? Send them to me on the email in a PDF file, like all the other banks. It's quick, it's easy, it's convenient. And they don't send the statements. And then when you go take a number and wait, like I did again, another hour and a half, I'm told I can't get my statements now because I don't have an original passport with me. Anyway, so I want to also post this as a notice or a warning, to put a shout out there. I'm going to really try to post this to GoTube today. I hope people can see it, because the more of us that are come together in the dream world, the better the chances, like the more potent the time, like the time to create and manifest what we want, is really strong right now, and it will be through the next week. It looks like 6 days, 6 more days. So if I have some people join me in the dream world, please, here's my request. So right here in Mexico, I'm seeing that they have another holiday. Not to be confused with the holiday they had yesterday or the day before or the one last week or whatever. But I'm told that the banks are going to be closed tomorrow on Friday. Is that the 12th? No. Is that the 13th of... I don't know what is tomorrow, the 12th of December. 12/12. Anyway, they're saying they're going to be closed tomorrow, and she said, well, you can make an appointment to come back next Monday. And I was like, well, I don't think so, because it doesn't seem the banks are going to open back up on Monday. At least that's what it feels like to me. That's what it smells like to me. It smells like the central bank rats are going to use the bank holiday weekend. They've even named I said, what holiday is it tomorrow? And she literally said, it's the holiday of the bankers. Oh my God. Yeah, I bet it is. That's when you're all going to close all your doors and zero out excuse me, close all your doors over the weekend, zero out everybody's accounts, blame it on a cyber attack while you execute a simultaneous, let's say, blackout, brownout operation to shut off all comms, all electricity, and everything like that. And then blame it on, fill in the blank, whatever country. Oh, wait, we're in Mexico, so we should blame it on the United States. It's all Trump's fault. I could see that pitching in the headlines. Whereas in the United States, well, if you're a true blue, red-blooded American, you know your arch enemy is Russia, right? Russia, Russia, Russia. Oh, and don't forget, communist red China, enemy number one, red China. The one Henry Kissinger went over and had a backdoor deal with in 1952, and they began to establish the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Yeah, just saying, if you're familiar with the ants in the jar theory / experiment, great. If you're not, look it up. I just want to illustrate that the one who's shaking the jar, it's time to wake up and realize who that is. And yeah, I'm gonna say it. Develop circular, renewable, not sustainable. Every time I hear that word, it just makes my blood curdle. Renewable. Regenerative business models that are production-based, manufacturing-based, not weak and service-based, not dependent upon the tourist industry, for instance. And just a little postscript, I'm going to just say, from a jet engine mechanic's point of view, if there's any jet engine mechanics in the audience, or any aircraft maintenance personnel in the audience at all, you can verify what I'm saying is true. That you can't ground jet aircraft for months and or years at a time and expect that the fleet will continue to fly. The amount of that are flying now is a fraction of what was flying before the certificate of vaccination ID agenda began in the fourth quarter of 2019. The few that they have been able to keep up in the air and going are getting to the point. Well, you know, it's from a corporation's perspective. The operations and maintenance requirements, combined with the risk management analysis, actually no, they're not even into RMA anymore because it's all commoditized on the market. They're actually taking bets of which, in the stock market, which planes are going to fall out of the sky next. But it'll just take a few of those, and then they'll say there's some other reason that they have to ground all the flights for your safety or whatever. So if the planes aren't flying, where's the tourists coming from? That's a service-based economy. That's a weak economy. It's dependent upon the whims of another player in the market. Now, well, oh, Daddy, that wouldn't happen because these are private corporations and they're looking to make a profit. No, wrong. I received notice in fourth quarter 2019, I think it was, of how do I say, consolidation, merger, no, let me just say it. Aeromexico, the national airline of Mexico, let me say that again in another way. The airline that Mexico's people's taxpayer money funded and established, was bought up or consolidated into another such company called Delta Airlines. And of course, Delta and American and every other airline you can imagine has all been consolidated into ETFs, and you know, they're funds that are traded on the market. They're commoditized. They are held in mutual funds and things like this. Where I almost lost my train of thought there for a minute, but I was talking about the planes and how they're going to stop, and how what I see before me, I want to tie all this together and have it make sense. The plan of the central bankers is, it would appear that the plan of the central bankers over this bankers holiday, because why not have another holiday just for the bankers? Because yeah, they just contribute so much to our lives, right? As you can clearly see, you know, look at the statements I don't have. Yeah, but they're going to take a holiday just for themselves. And that's when it feels like what it appears to be that the central banks plan to do an international, I guess it's an international bankers holiday. I don't know, maybe it's just a holiday here in Mexico. Maybe they already did this over the last holiday in the States and I'm just not aware of it. But on these unholy rituals of Caesar's calendar, like the holidays, is when they use our participation in those said rituals to harvest our energy to execute an agenda that is nefarious. Not only nefarious, it has deleterious results. Because if you shut off everybody's ability, and I don't mind, do not get this twisted, family. I'm going to say this straight up. I am all for the central banks and this ridiculous system of Babylonian money cursed bullshit to come to an end. But, you know, before you pull the rug out from everybody's feet, give the people a chance to realize that there might be another, you know, that we should be able to start forming these things now without waiting for the, you know, the slow motion train wreck to unfold. That we can start preparing now. I mean, there are already many circular markets and renewable economies and all kinds of beautiful stuff happening all over the place. But here in the cities, these folks are going to be super vulnerable. And there's a widespread infrastructure of transmitting and receiving devices that are attached to weaponized frequencies. So anyhow, I'm just, you know, I don't want to say the Z word, but there was a movie I saw, I want to say back in the early to mid 70s, I don't know, late 70s. It was the first such movie that came out with the Z's, zombies. And it was called Dawn of the Dead, I think it was called, and it was staged in a shopping mall, just like the one I'm going to show you now. Turn this around. Okay, look at here. This is a big, huge shopping mall, and I'm just sitting in one space of it. This thing goes on and on and on and on and on. Way over there, it even goes over to the other side of the street. Okay, and all these banks are consolidated up in here. All the banks, they closed their main branches and like the sucursales, or the physical locations, are all basically consolidated into this one area. So you know, the bank runs, the you know, like the 20th century version of the bank runs, where the people are standing outside the bank in a line waiting for their money. We won't have that. Those bank runs will all be, those lines will all be consolidated to just this one area. And you know, like this one too, here, I'm going to take a picture of this one especially. They call it Capital Bank, but it's not a bank. It's not a bank. It's a fintech company. It's like an ETF of banks. It's like a basket for basket currencies. It's like a AAA rated fund on the market, or when the fund itself is made up of a bunch of completely failed individual companies. Capital, well, they embezzled 425,000 pesos out of my account, making sure that not only am I homeless, I'm also without funds. And they are not a bank, they are a fintech company. So they're not held to the same standards as a bank or a financial institution. So legally speaking, there's banks. Well, okay, let me go back up. There's ACH, that comes down from the central bank. ACH, the automated clearing houses. And then from there to the reserve banks. And then from there to the reserve banks, the banks that are under the control of the reserve area. So like, for instance, the Federal Reserve of St. Louis. Look, I'm not watching what I'm doing. Sorry. And then from those Federal Reserve satellite offices, then it goes down to the banks that you and I walk into. And at each one of those stages, the bank takes the amount that's on deposit and multiplies it, well, to infinity. There used to be there used to be a hold on that you could only do fractional reserve lending, but you still had to keep 10% of the deposits and not gamble with the other 90%. And then they took that away in the early 90s. So it's a casino. This is some of the stuff Catherine Austin Fitts refers to. Okay, so there are differences between. So when you think your bank is insured, yeah, I suppose you got the government's going to insure that bank, but if it's not a bank, it's not legally. It is not a bank. Legally speaking, it's a fintech company. Just because it says bank on the front door doesn't mean it's a bank. And you know, well, you know, given what time it is in the spin cycle, this 9 on the year of Caesar's calendar, 2025 is 9, and that's like the spin cycle. That's like when the washing machine's done, and it's going on that spin cycle to get that last bit of water out. So it's like the banks now. They're going for the last drop of blood that the people have. Their blood, sweat, and tears represents this money. This money should not be a representation of our blood, sweat, and tears. It doesn't have any value. And it's under someone else's control. Like, how many months have the banks here been without money in the ATMs or at the desk? You go up to, oh, sorry, we can only give you 5,000 pesos, or, oh, sorry, we can't give you anything at all. Like, I don't know. I see the slow motion train wreck, and I want to put this out there to let you know, family. Literally 11th hour kind of stuff here, but if we all get together and just say, no, banks, central banks, we don't owe you anything. You done started every war that's ever been on this planet. Look at all the lives and the homes and the infrastructure and the animals and the people and everything you destroyed and killed. Look at all the market crashes. Look at all the stock market crashes, all the bubbles and the bubbles that get bursted, and then look at the people who lose their jobs and lose their homes to like foreclosures and stuff like that. And their not just their homes, but like even their cars and stuff. No, if we're going to sever ties and you're going to exit stage right, which I wholeheartedly applaud you to exit stage right, Babylonian cursed money system. But it doesn't need to be on your terms, because you're not a child of Mother Earth that gets to decide what is manifested here. You have your plans and we have ours. No. And this is the video that I've been getting messages to republish, because when I published it in 2020, it got erased immediately and without warning, and you know, I had 6 months. My channel was 6 months old. I had like 35 subs. So here we are, 5.5 years later. I'll say it again. Yes, Babylonian money curse system do exit stage right, but we choose to use an informed choice to provide an alternative to the dystopian nightmare that you have in mind. In that regard, I call each and every one of you to the round table in front of the Great Spirit, in front of the fire that represents the light of this world and the grandfather fire. I call you to a round table and let you know, no, your terms and conditions are not acceptable. You have raped and pillaged enough. It is time for repatriation. Is that the right word? Repatriation? Reparation? Let's just say it's time to settle accounts, because we're getting ready to sever the agreement. I see you're going to sever it this weekend. So let me just throw this out there. No, in fact, the people don't owe the central banks anything. And no, in fact, it is not appropriate to liquidate our accounts for the purpose of recapitalizing yourselves so that you can continue to literally feed upon the host until the host is no longer alive. And it would also be fair for settlement purposes to talk about the losses and the suffering that you have caused for humanity. In the divine order of things, of course, but nonetheless, there are damages. And so my terms and conditions would be to say that the central bankers cannot even put a number. There's no number with enough zeros behind it to represent what the central banks have taken from the people. And I believe it is only a fair goodwill offer at the round table to the central banks, or the people that operate these what's left of these banks here I'm looking at, to go ahead and stay open. Don't close. But while we wean ourselves off of this Babylonian cursed money system that has to fall, let's come together and figure out what the new currency is going to be. Because the digital government-based nonsense that's tied to the social program, social score, or whatever, I don't know what they call, how much of an obedient slave you are. I would just say that which is tied to the Orwellian dystopian nightmare of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence will always be inferior. Always. Always has, always will be, always inferior. Yeah. It's all good. But I just want to throw that out there. I know this has been kind of a long rant, but I just want to throw that out there again. That's what, and if you want to look about the soft disclosure that they tried to get us with the tacit consent before, you could look at the Rothschild rag called The Economist magazine. And I believe the first disclosure of this was in January 1988. And then there's been a few disclosures since then, I'm sure, if anybody reads that rag. No, I just say no. I say no. I say no. Hemp and cáñamo, or well, I should say hemp, what we call down here in Mexico cáñamo, mycelium, and an unlimited number of other, we'll call them raw materials, can provide every single item on the global market. Every single item on the global market. Everything you can think of in the world to buy. But if you're a consumer, or if you're a small business, or if you're, a shipping company, or international, multinational, it doesn't matter what your business is. When I say international market, I mean international market, all markets. So, what, Dede? Well, then don't those raw materials, and coupled with the blood, sweat, and tears of the people who, work to work with these things, to make these products and goods, to cultivate these products, these raw materials that then make the products and goods, doesn't that have value? Well, yeah. Doesn't everything in the entire store, and every store in all the world, have value? Well, yeah. All right. So if I have a raw material that can provide that value, then the raw material itself has intrinsic value. Self-evident, readily apparent, Captain Obvious moment. Value. And if it has value, then why can't it back our currency? Huh? Why can't we have a mycelium peso, or a Canyamo pound, or go back to even the hemp dollar that was in the United States? Already we have, don't forget, Tumen, amongst other alternative currencies here in the Mesoamericas and Turtle Island. Why? Why would we want to continue messing around with the debt-based fiat currency that we clearly know has no value? And they're shutting down all the damn banks anyway. They're going to take it all anyway. Anyway, it's a rant. Another rant. But always with a solution. That's a solution. To provide value in the marketplace, and to provide value in our national, sovereign, tangible, let me say that again, tangible, material, not digital. That's all for now, family. I don't even know how long this video is. Good Lord, already 30 minutes. Sorry for the long rant, but enjoy. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you in the dream world. Join me. Join me there.